just open up a girl's Instagram and you make an immediate judge a book by its cover on like, oh, this girl's just all about attention in like 2 minutes of looking at her photos.
And I would trust my gut on that.
Yeah. And and we've talked about this before too, like a lot of these girls that are beautiful and immediately are posting stuff on social media that gains them attention. So at a young age, they're receiving a fire hose of attention.
Mm-hmm.
And can they turn that off for you?
Hammer damage, bro.
Yeah, can they turn that off for you? And like, are you able to tell them, yeah, you're gonna take, like, if I'm gonna take you seriously, you're gonna take down all of those photos and put your photo or your profile private. Like, well, how are they gonna respond to that? All right. Well, welcome to podcast 39, 8, 9. I don't know what number we're on, but
nice.
As the title says, we're talking about red flags.
Red flags.
The reddest of the flags that we all ignore.
Do not enter.
Yeah. And so yeah, today we are going to go over some red flags for the guys when dealing with the ladies today. We're kind of hoping to take a little different perspective on it than there's a lot of videos out there about this topic, but
true.
We figured it'd be a worthwhile topic to cover because, and then we'd love to hear your comments on it because we're not going through our exhaustive list. We did come up with a pretty large list, and we're gonna go through kind of what we viewed as the top ones, and then love to hear your guys' thoughts on what we're missing.
Yeah, please, spread that info around. We need to know.
Yeah.
So, Joe, you had something you want to add to that? Oh, let's just do a prayer, and then I'll kind of. All right. We can start in on that. Father, thank you for bringing us together today. Thank you for your grace and your mercy. Every day we live in that, and sometimes we take it for granted. And while we're slipping and we're sliding and we're climbing up higher, you're always there, just covering us in your love and cajoling us to become better. So we thank you for that mercy and that grace, Father. And today we address this interesting point of how do we know what's in a person, their value, how to make the right choice. Lord, it's a tough one, and you're there with us. So be with us here today as we try and uncover some of these things, and be with us in this discussion and show us the deeper meanings here that are waiting to be seen. We love you, Lord, in your awesome name. Amen.
Amen.
So you're out there on the dating scene, right? You're excited. There's a beautiful lady that you're interested in.
She likes you.
She likes you back. You're texting. You got a date lined up, right? You're super excited. You got all these hormones blasting, basically on drugs. Let's be real.
You are on drugs.
You're on the number one drug, which is, we'll call that infatuation because it's really not love.
Scientifically, dopamine, serotonin, feel-good stuff.
You really
high
do.
doses.
You can sleep like 3 hours a night, wake up for work all bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, right? So basically, what I want to elaborate on is there's already this giant veil in front of you when you're dating and you're excited about a person. So we just want to address that right off the bat, guys, within your vision for red flags and how if you're not a Mike Mulvaney, a complete savage who's like black and white, we can oftentimes see things in a way that
You put on glasses that don't see color anymore.
Absolutely.
I remember beer goggles back in the day.
Yeah.
You have a couple drinks and all of a sudden this person's like,
Acceptable.
yeah, I really like this person, right? But these are called infatuation goggles, and so they can stop you from seeing some of these red flags. So I just want to kind of bring that one up. Most guys in the red pill community, Rolo talks about this. He's like, they're just interested and they're just amazed that they're getting attention from another female, and that is what I'm addressing right now, along with the cocktail of hormones that are going on in your brain. So we can get on to the 5 red flags that you can see past the goggles.
Yeah, and just be aware, it doesn't matter how savage you are, like Mike Mulvaney, we're going to try our best to be honest with the fact that what we're dealing with is our own worst enemy. And that worst enemy is going to tell you the silver lining over and over again, like Joe was saying. But most importantly, the tactics you use to slow yourself down to say, what is this red flag and why am I going to have to handle it? That's why we're going to talk about some of these topics that, yes, you probably heard elsewhere, but hopefully we can give you insight as to what's going to slow you down and why they actually matter.
Because at the end of the day, if you don't pay attention to these red flags, you end up wasting time. Because usually they don't go away, and then you end up breaking up. And
Absolutely.
You learn the hard way, pretty much.
I think that's why it's also very important to have brothers in your life that will call you out on it.
Yeah.
Like that's one
That's
thing
like a whole nother podcast too, in some ways, because like that's your extended conscience is your brothers. You know, and they're going to be not Twitter pated or infatuated, so they're going to see what's actually happening. And they're going to be like, yo, bro, you're trying to take my dream away, man.
Come back to real life.
And they're like, no, you need to wake up. This is a nightmare waiting to happen, boy. This ain't no fantasy. Yeah, Twitter patient. It's a real thing. Watch Bambi, bro. If you haven't watched the end of Bambi, it's pretty. That's a great little. I think it's like a 5-minute segment at springtime with all the animals getting together and they're used to hanging out. And all of a sudden, Bambi's like, "Where's Thumper? You know what's happened to him?" And then all of a sudden, his little skunk friends hanging out. It's just like, I'm all alone. Why? Where are my friends? You know? And it's like, well, your bros need to stick with you. And when it comes time to start thinking about wife material, the real bros will be sitting there like kind of with their pad out and being like, yo, what's she saying? What's she doing? Ask some tough questions that you may not want to answer.
I also use my sister's. She's a good filter too. I run girls by her.
She older or younger?
She's older.
Yeah.
So she has some good objective lenses on.
Right. You're lucky enough to have that because we just got a mom.
That's another one I was going to bring up.
Yeah.
Mom's there.
And I don't mean just like I could be better because she's great. But it would be cool to have like a sister that was more in your age bracket.
Bros before hoes.
Yeah, I'm sorry, guys. Anyways, so yeah, let's start ripping into this, guys.
They're really in no particular order. There's not like these aren't rank ordered by any means, and they're not like
it's the biggest red flag.
They're not like a line in the sand too. Like if this red flag shows up, kick her to the curb. Like
if she has a bulge, that's the biggest red flag.
That's a big red
How
flag.
does sex change in the life?
Immediately. Not a woman.
Oh my gosh.
Hey, it's important to say nowadays. You just never know.
You know, just a quick story. Our brother Oliver came to Florida for the first time, and he's lived in North Pole, Alaska for pretty much his whole life. And he went to Miami Beach with Dad.
South Beach.
Or South Beach? Yeah. A spot where there's a strip. Beautiful people everywhere. And he kind of somberly looks at Dad, and Dad, you know, sitting there. I think we were in the car or something. I was real young, but Dad tells the story all the time, so I tell it the way he does. He's like, Oliver looks at me, and he's like, there's a lot of beautiful women out there, but some of them have Adam's apples. I was like, dude, it's true.
It's harder every day to tell.
Yeah. You know, I mean, I could just imagine what that would feel like coming from Oliver's, you know, like very different place. You know, everybody's always
There's some
covered
good-looking men that look like women out there.
Can you imagine that nightmare waking up, just you were at the bar drunk or something, and
That's where it starts, is drunk.
They wake
right?
up and they're standing up taking a piss. You're like, yep, that was bad.
That reminds me of that movie. Who's that dude who does all those hilarious like Naked Gun movies? He's like Leslie
Nielsen.
Yeah, he had like in one of their movies, he has that exact experience, and she's like peeing standing up, and you know how Leslie always makes those goofy, stupid faces. I remember as a kid, I was like, "Mom, what's the matter?" And she's like, the chick's a dude or the chick's a guy. I was like, what? Yeah, it was horrible. Yeah. Don't let that happen to y'all. Don't drink, y'all. No,
right.
Kidding. So, okay, first thing on the topic. What's it?
7 red flags, because that's God's number. That's what we got. No particular order, just shooting from the cuff, right?
Yeah. I guess so. The first one is the bad relationship, especially with the father, but I'd say the parents overall.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's a big one. I think
daddy issues.
Well, yeah, that's like a broad one.
Good
Because,
sex, bad relationship. Not a good long term.
Yeah, well, you know, I was thinking about that one because when we were going through the list, we kind of thought about, like, daddy issues obviously, I guess, come up a lot for young ladies. But I guess we could touch on that one first. What does that look like? You know, if you're looking at a young lady and she likes you, like, what do you start to see when you see daddy issues crop up? What does that look like? Because I mean, I'm kind of like, I don't know exactly. When I thought about this topic, I was thinking mainly about the woman treating her parents with like a lack of respect, you know, or something like that. So do you guys have any ideas on that?
I think it, like, for me, like, it's normally you meet a girl, you see some of the red flags we're talking about, and you realize the foundation to those red flags are the daddy issues.
True.
Like I think that's more so what I would say.
It's like a systemic thing.
Yeah, it's
not
like,
something you could just
it's the root cause of a lot of the other issues.
True.
Is that quote daddy issues problem.
I agree, and I think like the daddy issues oftentimes they manifest in them needing validation from men. So they want that approval from their father, and they're not getting that from their father, so they look to go get that in these other men. Sometimes they're older men. Sometimes they're men that tend to have those bad boy attributes where they're a little bit more, quote, masculine. And it can also lead them to feel like unfulfilled within any of their relationships because they're not getting that validation from their father, who they really need to get that validation from. So there's always a kind of like unfulfilledness within the relationship because you're never going to fill that role for them.
There's no
way.
way.
In a relationship as a mate.
I mean, God can. I mean, that's what we see is God being the father for everybody. So like a lot of 80% of the people out there are going to have an issue with their parents, both, whatever. But it's like when you hear the
100%.
word, 100%. But I mean like major issues, not just like, man, my mom doesn't let me talk or something that's just like a character flaw that's like acceptable, but like a major thing where they impacted your character negatively.
Like abuse.
Like it's abuse of some sort or negligence of some sort. But daddy issues as a term sounds generic, right? Because it could encompass, it could be an alcoholic father. It could be a father that was just not present. It could
Absent
be
father.
or the overworking father, or the father that gave everything that they want to their daughter, like this enabler, So it's like a hard one to figure out. But I think Mike pretty much nailed it. It's going to be a systemic thing. What I can say for the instances that I'm able to relate to is like Joe had brought up, when a girl is looking to date older guys all the time. That for me says that she's
Which is
looking
it
for
depends
a
on how
father
much
figure
older,
who
though.
she's dating.
Right.
When I'm talking older, I mean it's kind of relative to the age. I think that's important. So if she's like in her teens and she's dating somebody in her 30s, like late teens, I'd say that's definitely a red flag for me. If she's like in her late 20s and she's dating a guy in his later, or mid 20s, dating a guy in his, mid to late 30s, I would have to think about that one a little more.
I think about it like, could you have a child? Could you be her dad? Like, could you have had procreated and had
like
her
a
as a child?
50-year-old dude dating a 20-year-old girl.
Well, obviously, you could be your dad. Yeah,
happens a lot.
that makes sense to me because then you're in dad age bracket. So like, what if you could be her dad in age wise? Then probably.
And I'd say ask the question, if you're dating a girl, there's nothing wrong with being forward about, hey, what's your relationship with your dad like? Was he hanging out? Did he love the Lord? Where did you get your idea of your faith and your walk? Was it mainly your mom, mainly your dad? Ask those questions. And even if the girl's put together and stuff, like Joe was saying, there still might be issues there. She may not have daddy problems. She may have been, healed by the Lord and been able to get through things, and she's doing much better now. But you're still going to want to know.
But there's a lot more single mothers, and there's a lot more than ever before. So there's a lot more. That would go to say that there would be a lot more young girls out there without a permanent male figure in their lives. So, I mean, I think that's more of a current problem than
if you're
going to
put it on a scale, that'd be like way
yeah,
up there.
just looking at the numbers.
Yeah.
And I think I also want to point out, this is for the next podcast, but there are mommy issues for guys too.
100%.
Guys didn't get
We
proper
don't talk
mommy
about it as
Yeah.
much, but yeah.
Well, and it's probably I think the daddy issues are worse for men in the end.
Such a good point, dude.
I think what men turn into without the dad is worse, I think, than the girls.
Elaborate on that.
Well, like I know they always talk about like statistics for. Well, Myron will often say dads keep men out of jail and women off stripper poles. Well, the men out of jail thing, like I think the majority of men in prisons, the majority of like the school shooter kids, like all these degenerate males are often from dadless homes.
Yeah. And I think a lot of that is because they don't feel like when you see a proper dad figure, they're sacrificing in the right ways. And so they're being validated in their sacrifice, which is something you have to be taught. Otherwise, you're going to think that the world is not giving you your due, and you're going to feel disenfranchised and sort of an outcast. Whereas if you have a good dad figure, you're going to be like, oh, that's part of the job. It's part of the job, man. This is cool.
Yeah.
This is where I find my place as a man. That's what men do. They sacrifice. They put in the hard work. They're not always looking for like the pat on the back. The world may not validate them, but they find the purpose in their work and their duty, right? And that has to be taught.
Has to be taught by a good male.
Yeah, they
Good
validate
father.
their family. They validate the world. They show the kids this is what we're doing. This is why we're
This is
doing
our
it.
family.
They
bro.
lead.
Yeah.
Yeah, they lead in those times where everyone's like, what's going on?
I
It's
always
like,
love
this is-
that.
This is what's going on. But I think these problems are all, well, you could say family issues. Like, because daddy issues, yes. But like really this is systemic from the family.
Yeah. I wanted to point out, I guess, as a sub point, since this is like daddy family issues, a red flag that I would definitely pay attention to is, say I'm hanging out with a girl, right, and we're dating, and her mom calls, and she's really short with her, or like doesn't give her mom that, you don't sense that respect,
That love and
you know,
affection.
like she's trying to rush her off the phone, or maybe she's just talking down to her a little bit. That sense of love and attention and respect is not there, and you start to notice that become a trend. I'd be like, whoa, I'm probably going to be in that person's shoes where I'm caring for somebody. I'm actually going out of my way to talk to them, call them, check up on them, and all of a sudden I'm taking they're being treated like crap. It's only going to be a matter of time before you're no longer the interesting new thing in their life, and you might be getting treated like mom and dad. So
but
it's
you don't
definitely a
know
red
if
flag
there's
to
a
me.
trauma thing there that happened before and there's still like
Well, you can tell-
resentment and bitterness from something that their parents actually did do.
Well, the reason why I say it's a red flag is because like you're not going to typically meet the parents until things get a little more serious.
Yeah.
So you're probably going to be like a phone call where you're kind of eavesdropping a little bit on what's going on, and you can tell if there's respect there or not. Like if it's a mom that's like maybe got a problem with drugs and she's asking for money or favors from her daughter, that's a way different experience than like a mom that was there for her daughter the whole time, and you can just tell that the daughter just does not want to
spoiled
talk.
brat.
Or the fact that like really what's in the background of my mind is like, this is a chance, an opportunity for you as a woman to show me that your relationship with your wife is good.
Yeah.
Or not your wife, but
Right.
your mom is good.
It's a lack of vision.
You know, like I'm here with Mike. We're having lunch. Like just those basic courtesy things. Like, here's what I'm doing. Here's who I'm with. What's up? Or whatever.
Or how she talks about her parents to you
Yeah,
and how she describes them.
that's a big one.
Because, I mean, we have a lot of friends of ours who have very good reason, I would say, to talk very negatively about their family members.
But
And-
don't.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that would be another big one.
Yeah, they show that
Maturity.
and it's not even like some people, and you see this a lot with women, I guess with boys, men too, but they can be justified and entitled to complain about certain things. And if they were, say, a therapist, the therapist would be like, yeah, absolutely. This father, mother figure, whatever, they let you down. You can talk about that. You can feel bad about that. But like Mike was saying, there are people out there, and it's usually a sign of maturity where they're like, yeah, it happened. I'm getting over it. I don't hate this person. I don't have a chip off my shoulder in the shape of my mom.
Right.
So,
Yeah, I saw this this post on my buddy's story, and it was like, everyone will betray you. And I liked it. I was like, that's 100% correct. Everyone, your brother, your mother, your sister, your father, your bros, they're all going to betray you. Every single one of them. And you know what? You are going to betray yourself.
And you're going
You'll
to
let
betray them too, right?
Yeah, exactly. There's only one person that won't do that. We all know what his name is.
none good but Jesus.
And it's just an important thing to remember. You know what I mean?
It's humility, right?
Yeah, it's all going to run a full course circle around. So having that love and forgiveness and that ability to have redemption in your life for those people because you love them is the main key factor within that.
Healing starts there.
Yeah, absolutely.
What do you got next, Mike?
The next one we have is no long-term friends or very low-quality friends of bad influence.
You want to take that, Mike? I think you've had a lot of experience with these.
I wouldn't say necessarily. I don't have the experience. I know we talked a little bit before on the long-term ones. I don't know if I would necessarily specifically view that one as a red flag. But the quality
It's
friends,
tough, but why? Why? I mean, like we talked about that. Why? Because a lot of
girls seem to have struggled today maintaining friendships.
Yeah.
Like you hear it over and over again. A lot of them actually prefer to have guy friends, and
Yeah.
I don't know if that's always been the case or if it's a new cultural thing or what. But it seems like a lot of girl friendships are like walking on eggshells all the time. From what I hear, anyway.
true.
I don't know why that is, but like I always say, you can get 4,000 men on a boat, but try doing that with them.
Yeah.
It's like they need their own house.
Should
Even
be a social experiment.
you know what I mean? Even having like a house full of sisters, like my dad grew up with a bunch of sisters, and he has some stories. I'm like, whoa, that shit got
Shrapnel.
dark, dude. Like, I thought shit was dark sometimes with my brother and I, but like, oh my God. What I think sometimes is that for men, like our shared interests, a lot of times will kind of lure us together. Like if it's music or fishing, some kind of activity, we just kind of go hard on. When I see the older ladies, if it's sewing, or something like that, or some kind of a thing they do together that they can have fun doing and talk about and get better and have just an experience outside of just talking, that I feel like, I mean, that's what we do with this podcast too. It's not like we're just sitting around hanging out.
Yeah.
I mean, we are kind of doing this, but there's
joint venture goals.
Joint venture goals. They keep you united, and like you're actually working and doing things and being productive. And I feel like that's so important in your relationships. Like, yeah, you can love people. Yes, you can have them in your life. But like the best relationships are based on productivity, and doing something with a purpose with that other person, that you're growing together and you have this goal that's united.
Do better.
You know what I mean? You want to see them do better. And it brings in a natural accountability to like what your relationship is based
there's
on.
Nothing more, I'd say, and that's probably what parents feel all the time. It's not like you're parenting your friends, but more or less the same stuff's sort of at work there. Is like you just know they can be something that they haven't yet been.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And to see them do that and to be an element in their life that's helping, that's an amazing feeling.
It is. So like, I remember reading Screw Tape Letters, and C.S. Lewis was talking about like these friends, these like worldly friends that the guy had, and how like people have friends for all different types of reasons. People have friends to climb social ladders. They have friends to like validate themselves. People have friends for the right reasons, so that they can remain accountable, and like, they really value the relationships. These like people are like, they're pieces to you.
But are they all friends, or are just some of them like just furniture in your life?
That's the question. And I think like a good friend should be somebody that they become a part of who you are.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like we just got off a bachelor party, and some of these guys I haven't hung out with for a long time. You know what I mean? But we've been friends since like 10 years old. And it's amazing. One guy, Paul, and my other buddy, Luke, they're great friends growing up.
Paul's been on the podcast.
They were great friends together. And Luke couldn't make it. And I remember missing Luke a lot. But then Paul was there, and I was able to see like all the parts of Luke that were Paul. I was like, Luke's almost here in a way. You know what I mean? And then it caused me to think, I was like, we all hold on to parts of people. They become us, and then they become you. You know what I mean? And so if like a girl, you're hanging out with like a girl, right, one night, or you're on a date with this girl, right, and then maybe you run into some of her friends, right, or maybe you go on like a joint date, and maybe some of her friends are like, let's just say let's just say like they don't really fit in with her like the way you would see her. You know what I mean? Maybe she's like modest, and more ladylike, and then she has like some friends that are like very promiscuous, outlandish. Maybe they're getting drunk. Maybe they're like, just not having proper manners like in public, and it's like, wow, it's the first time I'm meeting her friends. You know what I mean? And she doesn't really, she kind of like maybe is very submissive to them in that area, instead of being like, hey, this is somebody I care about, and you're embarrassing me. You know what I mean? Like, doesn't really draw the line on like what's happening, and doesn't like say, hey, this is important to me. You should care about what's important to me and be my friend right now, instead of being the opposite.
Sometimes it happens with old friends, like friends that you
they embarrass you, kids, or they purposely try to undercut you. It's almost like when they see something good happening for you, they just try to like, that's not a friend, by the way. That's not a good thing. But you can tell,
not to say among men we razz each other sometimes.
That's different.
This is different.
That's front of a girl, though.
That's a little
wrong.
bit. No, you need to be in your dude's corner.
Unless it's like hilarious and he's not falling off a bar stool.
No, you're
trying
sensitive to your bro. If you're taking chunks out of him, it's like you need.
That's not okay.
That's not okay.
Yeah, you got to wait.
Well, I would say like friends, they have certain attributes that you look for. I mean, if you have a good friend, he's going to be accountable. He's going to tell you stuff that you don't want to hear sometimes. Jordan Peterson says these two attributes, which I absolutely believe in, and they're the most rare. Is somebody who's able to mourn with you when you're going through something, not tell you how to fix it, not just listen, and then also celebrate with you and not be like jealous or something like that. Those are big ones, and I don't see that as present in the females as much. You know, we hear all the time.
It'd be a major green flag for me if like they had some long-term Christian female friends. Like that'd be a major green flag.
It would be so cool to see that, and
100%.
And for me, it's so rare that it's like, you know, that is definitely something that if I was to see, I would just be sort of shocked by a little bit. Yeah. But so going back to the friends and it being a red flag, the quality of friends, be talking to a girl and she would say, like, I'd be like, yo, do you have friends? You know, or let's talk about our friends. Somehow we're talking about friends. And she's like,
wait, if you do have a date and you're dating a girl and you're like, you want to know you want to know more about her, set up a date where you're around her friends. Be like, let's have a house party. Let's go meet up at a bar.
I'm talking
let's
before
go play
that,
pool.
though. I'm talking before even that happens. So, like, you're just sort of testing the water. You're just like, yo, what does your friend circle look like?
That's how you get to know it. That's why I'm bringing that up.
I mean,
because if you're asking her, what's she going to be like? Oh, my friend's cool. I love her.
No, you're not always going to get that. There's times where you're going to get like, I don't have friends, you know, or I'm just kind of a loner, you know, or you'll have like different answers, man. Sometimes if she doesn't have friends, she's not going to be like, come meet my friends, because she's not going to have any.
Well, that's why I say, like, if you try to set up a party, you can get to know both those answers at once. You know what I mean? Like, let's go play pool, invite some friends. I don't have any friends. But there's your answer.
Joe,
or I got some friends, then you go meet them.
What I was trying to get at was the way that she's going to take on that conversation. Like, I don't need friends. I don't need friends. I'm a loner. They're not needed for me. Maybe for some people.
I got it.
That kind of a thing.
Then you either know she has friends and doesn't care about you and doesn't want you to meet them, or she really doesn't have any friends, and that's not a good sign at all, because she needs to have friends.
Yeah, you know, and small friend circles are great.
Right. So, like, the major points you're looking at is, what are the quality of those friends, and how do they communicate together?
Yeah, and if I met a girl and she said my best friends are her mom and her sister, I'd be like, it's okay. Yeah, it might be what you can do today. Yeah.
Well, then on the quality side, I think that's probably the big one for me is like when you hear single girls keep each other single. So like that's part of that. And then if they got a bunch of female friends that are like single and then they're always the type to go out on a Friday night, like I don't want.
They're gonna lose their friend, right? So
yeah. Like they're gonna end up having to pick between the Friday night crowd friends and then you, because if you're like have any sort of brains, you're going to be like, nope to that idea.
Right. And that goes back to what John was saying. He's like, what are you doing with your friends? Yeah. Are they friends that you go out and party with and go out and try to fish with? Or are they friends that you're actually, you know, progressing your life with, that are like real friends that are helping you progress in true places?
He's talking about
real places in your
going
life.
To the gym with his feel-good friend. And it's like, yeah, you're just tearing your rotators and destroying yourself. It's like, good job, man. It's like, good job? Like, no.
Maybe the guy doesn't know.
Well, maybe he couldn't. You know, I mean, we don't know. We're just taking Paul's word for it. And he knows him better than we do.
Men are
so
not good
probably,
friends, obviously.
But
you don't want a bunch
of
yes men or yes women.
When I look at a red flag for a woman, it's more or less like, I don't need friends. Mm-hmm. That's what I start to see. It's like, I don't need them. Typically, you'll find out pretty quick, like Joe was kind of hinting at, if they do have a big friend circle and they're not really real friends, then you're like, okay, maybe this person doesn't know what it's like to have a real close friend, somebody who's an actual bosom buddy.
Those are popularity friends. Those are friends.
We know what that's like. There's a huge turnover for them. They're not going to be present in your life for longer than a few years, if that, you know, so we know that kind of an experience. So it's good to get background. It's good to understand, because from that, you'll be able to say, what kind of relationships is this person accustomed to? And
they're disposables. Really, you know, you want to see those like ingrained ones, you know.
I heard kind of a terrible story. Was that on some social media platform? The guy was telling a story of like how his marriage broke up, and it was literally because his wife made this new friend at work, and this lady was one of these like, I'm a single modern woman, I don't need a man, and then she kept just seeding ideas of this into this woman, telling her basically like,
here's what you're missing out on.
Here's what you're missing out on. Like, there's these cute guys at work, like you're missing out, like just basically seeding her over and over.
That's satanic.
Yeah, it was like a solid like year, and finally she broke and like went the other way.
You know, I watched this
company
thing.
Corrupts,
I watched
bro.
this thing.
Bad company corrupts.
It was like a dumb series, and I somehow got wrapped up into watching it. It's called like The House or something. It's about this couple who moves into this house, and they will go way beyond their monetary ability to pay for it, and like they start getting letters, and it's just like this horrible experience, and they almost, you know, it's a really crazy story. But the woman starts hanging out with a real estate agent, and all that woman does, all she does is do that sort of, here's your life and you suck and you shouldn't be doing this and I feel sorry for you, because you're kind of stupid, and it's like, but the way she does it is so manipulative, and you can see that the woman does not see what's happening and just becomes more and more dissatisfied with her life as she hangs out with this person more and more. And it's like, that's different than a person who's your friend who's like, you got to get rid of this habit or something. Because if somebody makes you feel like crap in the way, like, every time you hang out with them, it's like, get away from that
I call
person,
those
bro.
commercial friends because they're just like living commercials. They're just like, they validate you in the wrong ways to lead a lifestyle or to buy things or to become something that you're not. It's like, those are commercial friends. They're like
True.
living commercials.
True.
Full of shiza.
But it was brutal because you could see the show was good enough in
Well,
the
I'll tell
acting
you one
and the
thing,
dialogue where you
women-
could see how it would work.
Women are very influenceable, or I think like guys are sort with like a strong group, they're much less. Like we're just like, yeah. But I mean, like the world will influence anybody a lot. And if you don't have a strong foundation, you're not rooted deep, it's very easy to people to come into your life to make you feel insecure. And that's why having such a good foundation within your family and your friends is imperative, because you're actually marrying, or you're dating this person, but you're also dating all those other people, like I said, because those are little pieces of all those people that you're actually dating. You know what I mean? So that's really what it comes down to. That's why it's important to have good friends. That's why it's important to have good family, because you're dating all her friends and family. That's really what you're doing, guys.
Yeah, dude. It's a collage.
That's
of
really what you're
humans.
doing. That
Yeah,
collage
no,
is
it's
real.
true, bro. It's true.
And the books she read, and the
All right.
shows she watches,
It's
and the
everything,
music
man.
she listens
It's
to.
life, product of your environment.
Gets deep.
Next up is attention-seeking behavior. So whether that's
Ooh,
on
it's a big one.
social media, or how she
Spicy.
dresses in public, or whatever, she wants that male validation.
That's a big one. That's
Is
a
it
tough
always
one
male?
for me.
Is it always male?
It's probably not always male. I think deep down it likely is, if depending on how, like if it's a provocative thing that they're doing.
You know what I always wondered about? Well, yeah, it's interesting because attention is attention, and like which side, sexually speaking, is more important. Definitely, I think for females, like I think they care about what other females think about them a lot.
I think there's
You
two
know, but,
different ones I've seen on like Instagram, for instance. Like I've seen some women that have just all women followers.
That same
You know what I
thing
mean?
goes for men too.
They're all like very supportive of each other. They're all kind of like, "You're so hot, girl. I love you." And then there's other ones where it's like all dudes. You know what I mean? So there's two different types.
Both are
You
concerned.
know what I mean? Both.
But
Both
okay, I would
happen.
say
one's more like sexually provocative than the other, but I've seen both.
Okay,
I've seen
so
both.
red flag. Going back to the dude who's sitting there Twitter pages, right? Like
Yeah.
having to look at this woman
high on drugs.
What's going on? How do I see it's a red flag? Like we're talking sort of around the subject. So I would say, like, how often is she checking her phone?
Oh, I
How
got a
often
good one.
is she on her Instagram account looking for what is she looking at too? Like,
Yeah,
is
so,
she
like-
checking who liked and watched all of her stuff? Like I have to admit, there are times in my past where I have done that. And I've been like, well, who's checking up? And you want to know your audience, and you can kind of describe it to yourself in a way that makes sense. But then you start to understand, like, okay, this is a drug. This is doing something to my brain. And so it's like, if I'm looking at a woman and she's on her phone, like if I'm talking to her mid-sentence, she breaks out her phone, sort of like a crackhead. And then all of a sudden I have to just kind of sit there and wait for the moment to transpire. That's a red flag for me.
Yeah.
I'll be like, that's just going to get worse and worse.
Oh yeah,
To the
If
point
it's
where
happening,
I'm just like, yeah,
the first 2 dates, like,
oh,
you
just
just goodbye.
run away.
Or if you're like on the phone with her and the thing's just going zzz, 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 the whole time, like that's not happening, bro. She's talking to you and she's getting messages left and right. I don't know.
We'll coin the phrase, get the Joseph out of there. Like Joseph running
Yeah,
away from
yeah.
Potiphar's wife. There's a time to book it.
Yeah.
And also
that would be
another
one of
one,
those times.
another one. So is like, say you get on the elevator, right, and you're with this girl, and then like a really stud walks in, right? Does she change? Does her focus go? Like, what happens when she gets around another stud? You know what I mean? That's another red flag. You could tell. Like, is she focused on you, or is she just focused on this attention seeking?
Yeah, well, that's
'Cause
like flirtation. I would say that's a borderline, because people be like, oh, I wasn't flirting. It's like, well, like somebody who comes into that has a presence, they're gonna direct attention towards
How
themselves.
excited do they
So,
get? Are
I
they
mean,
like, what?
I feel like like
Well, I think showing any entertaining any male attention, that's cheating.
it's cheating.
If you're in the
Yeah,
relationship with
and you know what? I'll tell you, to be honest with you, South American women, a lot of the time, and I have experience with this, so I know.
culturally speaking, there is stuff that's more acceptable and not.
Mhm.
Oh, culturally,
Okay, like
yeah.
culturally speaking, like if I don't know what it's like for some of the more conservative white experiences out there, but I do know that like in some of the more Latin experiences, those things are more transient and flowing.
Or like the Egyptians,
or
like
the
some
Egyptians,
of the, they're
like
all
the dude-
touching and
Oh,
it's
way.
very different.
Yeah, and like
Yeah.
if you were in from their cultural background, you'd be like, these people just like each other. It's all good. These interactions are
Well,
not.
the dudes are like that with
They're worse.
too,
They
with
kiss
each other.
They held hands where they
yeah,
walked.
yeah.
The
Yeah.
Egyptian dude, it's another level. You'd say these dudes are homo gay, but they're not.
So an
They're just
important thing to
showing
take
friends.
into account is the culture where they're
yeah,
coming
that's where I'll
from.
say that because like if
If you
had
like
a-
Latinas, then you might have a little bit more of that going on.
You're
When
gonna think
you
that
go to
they're
the family
flirting.
encounter, you know, the cousin might get kissed up and the slap on the
Yeah.
ass, and you might be like, that's just the way they roll around here. You know what I
I'm
mean?
serious. They will get that kiss or that hug, and it will look like flirtation. They'll be
Yeah,
like,
but it's not.
It's not.
just what it is.
And I'm okay. So I'll say that. Say that.
And so dress code, that's another thing. And I guess this is also culturally because like everyone's got a different taste for what modesty is. We live in Florida. Obviously, there's a lot of there's a tough thing to do with that because I don't think there's a one size fits all for according to like what modesty is and what you like. Like some guys, they like a little bit more of like, you know, a woman that's a little sexier. You know, some guys might like a very prudish woman. You know what I mean? And I think there's ways to do both.
The Bible is pretty straight up, bro.
But
Yeah, I
you
was gonna
seriously,
Pretty
well,
straight
Paul,
up.
Paul
I
is
can't-
straight up about it, but
yeah, well, you
he's
know
the
what?
one.
Here's the issue, though, is like again we run into
He'd want
culture.
me to
It's not
cut
about
my hair.
preference of the guy that she's
No,
with. That's
it's not.
that's just that's an attraction preference. That's not modesty related.
What do
I
you-
would view it as
And you know what that is.
no,
yeah.
wait.
You know, like it's just gonna be we like to see stuff.
yeah.
Well, you do too. I do too. Like, I mean, I
Duh.
want my wife to not just be covered up in a burqa from head to toe, bro.
Well, you're
like,
not
I
at-
like,
you're
I would
not at
like to.
home.
Well, I mean, even when I go out to dinner,
But that's the difference.
even when I go out to dinner, I would like to see her be sexy, dude.
So that's like
How sexy?
that is well, number one.
What
That's
is-
That's
there's
what I
two
said,
different. There's
dude.
two different occurrences
No.
that is discussed.
It's a rough one.
Usually on this topic, especially like amongst like the red pill guys. It's if she's out without you and if she's with you. If she's out without you, it's going to be different than when she's with you.
Like
if
a
she's
girls'
with
night
you,
out.
then it's kind of like up to you and like what you're willing to tolerate because
Good
you're
point.
there.
Good point.
And you know, guys like to show off their girls too. But if
Yeah.
she's out on her own, that's the big question. How's she
Yeah.
going to dress?
Friday night, girls' night out,
Yeah.
everything's crammed
know
up
about
and
that.
showing. Then that's an issue, dude. I wouldn't let her go out. I'd be like,
No.
I'm going with you. Here's a gun and a knife and a taser, and this is not happening.
No, I mean, like when I think about dress code, modesty is something that is indicative of confidence. You know, and it comes down to that need for attention and validation, which is an appetite. And again, appetites that are not manicured in the correct way will run amok. This is what happens to anybody, anything. And so when I look at a woman that's able to acknowledge that because we're talking about attractiveness versus sexiness versus those two things, because like you can have a very attractive woman and she can be showing her attractiveness in a more lewd way,
Mhm.
or she can be showing her attractiveness
A
in
lady.
the way that's more ladylike, conservative,
Yeah.
and not
Her
only conservative,
movements, bro.
but like she's been see, now
everything-
that's the
it's not
thing,
like a
is some
brash,
of those
like,
sex,
"Ugh,
some
look
of
at
the
me."
things that I find most sexy are the more sort of nuanced ways she handles herself.
Right.
Not in like how much cleavage can I show, which is
Right.
like anybody can do that. But it's like, how does she sit down for her meal? How does she pick up her silverware?
Is she sultry?
Is
Does she have like
right?
that grace?
And there's those things which I'm like,
hot.
that's where I would look for, and that's what I would see as it being more attractive. And I'd have to acknowledge it myself. This is a good point for younger guys, is to be like, look, obviously you're going to be. Your biology is going to respond to visual stuff. Okay, so just kind of push that off the table because it's a given. All right, you're going to see the woman, and she's going to make you feel a certain way just based on the way she looks. Now, shift your attention to some of those other character things where it's going to take work, where she's going to have to put herself to thoughtfulness and how do I do this? How do I walk into a place? How do I sit? What are my gestures like as a woman, right?
Mhm.
Those things you should be focusing on to say like this woman has that higher level attractiveness,
yeah.
because that's where I think Paul was trying to say modesty is indeed more attractive. Because if you do see a woman that loves the Lord and knows she's beautiful, knows that when her time comes to show her body to her man, her husband is there, she's going to do that way better than the girl who's used to showing her cleavage all the time.
You know, like it's going to be more of that experience you're looking for.
It's gonna be much higher level,
Much
'Cause,
higher
like,
level.
Just busting out the cleavage and showing your skin. It's like that's all there is. Like she's probably not gonna be that. There's probably
It's
not much
basically
more
like
to go.
hanging a for sale sign on your neck.
Yeah, and there's
so
not
if
much
you're
more
in
to
a
go.
relationship with or you're dating this girl and she's always hanging a for sale sign on your neck, like, you want that?
Do you really want
I mean,
that?
there's
Yeah,
no
do you
house.
really
like it. I mean, but that's the whole point. Is you might like it,
But what
but
I
it's
think,
not like you want it. You shouldn't want it. That's the hard part about.
but what I
picking a
think
mate.
you're saying is like, there's so much more to like a woman that she got a certain way she walks. You know, she's got a certain way she moves her hands. You know, she looks at you and she has like a gesture like within her eyes. She's speaking through her eyes. You know what I mean? Her
That
movements,
is what I'm talking
her
about.
movements are like more like this refined lady. Like you can tell things will progress from there.
I noticed that a lot.
versus
in
the
way,
girl that just is just hot. You know what I mean?
that's all you're getting.
You
Well,
know
it's
what I
not
mean?
even
Like,
hot,
you've reached
though.
the
Like,
finish
for me,
line
dude,
already.
like,
You know?
it's like there's like hot, right? And it's just an image, because that can honestly, dude. There's so many glib, shallow, and guys will just write it off because they're like, she's a 10, she's a dime.
She's got them
whatever.
goggles on.
But then again, you're dealing with that. That's what you're gonna have, bro. And attractiveness is something that's supposed to grow in your relationship. So you need to know that she's able to work on those things, because she's not going to be that kind of a dime the rest of her life.
Yeah.
When she's 40, 50 years old, she's going to have to try and stoke your coals in different ways and make you feel attracted to her in different ways. And you need to acknowledge that. So, like,
And
I
she's
would
got
say,
to know that she's attractive.
well, that's what I'm saying. That's
She's got to know that she's attractive enough to wear a freaking carpet, dude, and be hot. You know what I mean? And know
put
she's
that
sexy.
parka on.
Yeah, get that freaking burqa on carpet, dude. And she knows she's sexy. There's nothing better than that, because like that, like when she gets older, when these things end up happening, she's still gonna have that flame, and like that is so important.
I think so,
because like
man.
if a woman doesn't feel confident around you, or she doesn't feel like she's leveling up, good luck with that.
Yeah, I would say, like, for
Good
the
luck with
women,
that.
for as far as red flags go, if the woman you're dating is always got some kind of a club outfit on, doesn't matter what, you're going to the park or you're going to the restaurant, she's always ready to go to a club, that's
That's a bad
that's a
sign.
red flag right there. And then the same thing, if we want to play devil's advocate, okay, because it can go the other way. I mean, say for instance, you got a girl who's very traditional, conservative Christian, and like she's wearing a one piece to the beach. Maybe you'd be like, yo, like you can wear a bikini. Like, we're in Florida, it's okay. You don't have to wear the one piece. Like,
Or you go out to like a really nice dinner, you know what I mean? Like,
and
Dress-
she's wearing a button-up tee. Like, you're just like, whoa. Like, you can wear something a little more elaborate.
yeah, like her dress
tonight,
comes down to her
right?
ankles. You know what I mean?
Which
Like,
is not, that's not the worst thing to deal with. I would take that in a
I would
heartbeat.
take
I'd be
it
like,
over
this
the
is not
other.
a hard thing to learn. You're good to go.
yeah.
But
So I
I-
guess horses for courses. You know what I mean? You know.
And then the other part of it is the online attention, and
big
like
one,
the
yeah.
like for me, and I think a lot of guys, you just open up a girl's Instagram and you make an immediate judge a book by its cover on like, oh, this girl's just all about attention in like 2 minutes of looking at her photos.
And I would trust my gut on that.
Yeah, and and we've talked about this before too. Like a lot of these girls that are beautiful and immediately are posting stuff on social media that gain them attention. So at a young age, they're receiving a fire hose of attention.
Mhm.
And can they turn that off for you?
Hammer damage, bro.
Yeah, can they turn that off for you? And like, are you able to tell them, yeah, you're gonna take, like, if I'm gonna take you seriously, you're gonna take down all of those photos and put your photo or your profile private. Like, well, how are they gonna respond to that? And I think a lot of
happy.
yeah, a lot of them are not gonna be happy.
Have you ever
'cause they
seen
like,
those girls that, like, when they're with a guy, like, they change their profile, and then, like, when they're not,
Those are
like,
called
all the other
sociopaths.
promiscuous pictures
Oh
come
my
right back
gosh.
on. Like, whoa, okay.
the Instagram's the
thought
best
you
dating app, and you
Right.
know, they've asked the girls on Fresh and Fit multiple times, like, would you rather have your Instagram or like a quality boyfriend? And it's shocking how many pick Instagram, because
That
for
is your
them,
boyfriend.
for them, it's
Yeah.
endless options. So
And
you're
valid.
asking me to curb all my options for this one guy? No.
And what's apparent to me is those girls don't know what they're missing out on.
Mm-hmm.
That's the whole sad part of it. That's the tragedy of it. That's where Satan has sold them a lie and said, well, a long-term relationship's going to suck. Basically, that's what they think.
Well, a lot of them
You know?
have. A lot of them have
Well,
been
not
screwed
enough
over
of
by
Well,
dudes.
here's the
and,
thing:
like,
is like that's going to happen no
they're
matter what.
jaded, jaded.
Yeah, dude, it happens. You're not the only one, so get over it. And it still works when it works. So that's the best thing to go shoot for. I feel like a lot of the girls that are younger, they just don't want to stop playing. You know, they want to
Yeah,
play.
they'll stop
bro.
play at
They-
30.
Yeah.
Girls just want to have fun.
Yeah.
Let's just be real.
What was that? Yeah. It's a horrible song of truth.
Let's keep this moving. Since, so the next one is male, just having a lot of male friends that she's close with.
That's a short one. I
Yeah.
mean, I don't know how much we have to elaborate on that.
It seems obvious, but it's amazing how
they're my
many
friends.
times I've been in this argument over and over again. Like,
What does that sound like?
they view, like, guys and girls have such a different view of friendships. They view it completely fine because in their brain they're not attracted to this person.
But
The other person
but
is.
guys always are maintaining female friendships that they have at least some
When
attraction
you
to.
say, yo, this is the way it's happening, what did they say back to you? Like, these guys actually like you.
no way. He's just my
They-
friend.
they
He's like
either
my
don't-
brother.
They either, a couple of them, I've been in this debate so many times. Some of the smarter ones, like, that have kind of been through it, they know the guys want them, and they're just like, I don't care. Like, they're cool, and I'm gonna curb them if they try, and I don't care.
They can stick around if they want to.
Yeah,
and they will.
That's
so.
basically, that's one of the responses. The other response is kind of like, just like, no, we're just friends. Like, what?
It's like the old school Instagram girl right there.
Mm-hmm.
It's like before Instagram was a thing, the girls would have guy friends.
Yeah.
And these guys would be just wishing that they'd exit the
One
friend
of my
zone
favorite,
somehow, someday, you know.
One of my favorite tests that they Fresh and Fit do is these girls that will always claim that they have them call up their closest guy friend that they claim
Does not like them.
Yeah, and then they have them like drop like, why haven't we ever been something more? And then it's those conversations are
So they asked the
It's
guy friend live like that. So they
I've
opened
been
the door.
waiting for
That's
this
probably
moment
99%
for
always.
3 years.
this is waiting so
Now
long.
is my time.
Yep.
Yeah, it's the truth. Well, I think
God, that's a good
inherently,
experiment.
inherently, most
That
guys
must be very entertaining.
even if they themselves believe like, oh, this is my sister, you know, like just good friends, whatever. There's just that sexual type of tension that men are
Unless
gonna
she's a
have,
burn
dude.
victim. No, I'm kidding. But still, usually
It's raw.
I'm just being
we
honest.
just know guys like
Just being honest.
if your woman had a bunch of close guy friends, you'd be so suspicious. Like,
just like when you have a daughter, you're like, okay,
yeah, that's
this
no.
is what guys want, daughter. This is what they and your
Mhm.
daughter's just looking at you like you're a guy too.
And I think all you have
know?
to see too is go through a couple girls that like breakups, and it's like, oh, they had a new guy in a month. Well, obviously they
Yeah.
were friends beforehand. He
Right.
was just sitting there waiting. Like,
this is true.
They
yeah,
say
Okay.
like girls never. What do they say? Like they
They're
don't.
never single.
they're
They're never
single.
single. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because the guy friend's sitting in the dugout waiting.
They're like, oh
on
wait,
deck.
I don't really like
Can
you.
we talk about what it would look like if they did have a guy friend that was like okay?
The times I've
It'd
seen
actually
it,
be their
I've
brother.
seen it work.
That's what I was gonna say to you. I'd be like, related.
I think it's one of those things where there's edge cases, so it's like a 10% time it works. A couple of the edge cases I think are if they grew up as childhood friends.
Yeah.
I think it's like actually scientifically proven that if you're close with childhood friends, like it creates some sort of
like platonic thing.
yeah,
that you can't
it's
break.
one of the reasons why you don't get attracted to your sister
True
because of
it's
these
not on your mind.
these close
You're still pure
friendships
and
when you're
innocent.
young.
Yeah, before
So I think
puberty.
it can happen as well if you're just always around this. My next door neighbor,
Mhm.
female friend, and we were like friends at 4 years old. I think those
Could
seem to-
work.
That
those
makes
can work.
sense because it's
Yeah.
like before puberty. It's like
Mhm.
before your hormones kicked in. Like there was like a
Unless you're Jordan
platonic
Peterson.
real factor to
Mhm.
it.
Got a
Even
crush
though
on
when
him.
I was young, I still was like,
I was gonna bring that up.
I was like
when
4 years old and like, yeah,
already thinking sex.
my balls are
Oh,
working.
yeah, dude. I was like, this is what it's about, bro. I
Mm.
was like, I realize I look innocent, but behind these eyes, man, there's
I remember in third grade we were having those conversations.
Hey,
100%.
yeah.
Let's be
Guys
honest,
are-
dude.
Guys are hardcore, bro. Like that stuff starts.
But I do know that when I was
Quick.
that young,
young.
there were certain female friends that I did not view as female. I thought they were
Just one of the
dudes.
guys.
Yeah, and not in the way that like you'd. It's kind of complicated, but when I put my mind back into it and I think about it, it's just because I felt like they were easy to talk to and just be friends with.
But didn't they
But
like you?
They did. That's what I was gonna say. They liked me,
Mm-hmm.
and so then that would come out, and I'd be like grossed out by it. You know, I used to get that cooties feeling.
It's like
And I'd be
you're
like-
not being true friend.
Exactly. So
I ran into that too. Every time I've had a female friendship where I was not at all interested,
They were
it
doing that to
always
you.
is back to me, and then I would notice that, and I would just chop it off right away. 'Cause
Because it's not fair.
Mike.
There's something I believe what happens.
it's good for them.
Well, and also you just feel like there's a certain insincerity going on. You know, and it's like I can't tolerate that.
Well, yeah, and I just feel because I know how it is as a guy. Like when you get strung along in the friend zone, it just
Not cool.
sucks.
I don't
And
know.
so
Some
I'm
guys
like,
are
I
cool
don't-
with that, dude.
Yeah, I'm just like I'm not gonna do
Ugh.
this to this chick.
Yeah,
And like lead her on basically, and then it's gonna like also I
You're
just
not
feel awkward.
even if she wants it,
yeah.
even if she's that's
Cool with it.
Well, they love to change your mind.
they
to try
do, man. I'll tell you
It's
that.
like
They
challenge
do.
accepted.
Yep, no, that's the truth, bro, and it could work on you.
Toilet seat up.
Mhm.
And
I've
down.
been in that situation, you know. So
Yeah.
don't
Right.
you know, like water will change a rock.
Yeah. So that was male friends. This is one of yours. Spends money she doesn't have and asks you to pay all the time.
Oh yeah, that's something that I think the blue pill guys will get, you know, sort of sucked into unbeknownst to them because they feel like they're doing their job. You know, and it's like, well, is it really your job to pay for a stranger's meal and then pay for this? And then all of a sudden they have money problems and then you feel like you're being a good guy because you're helping them out with their money problems. And then they ask in a nice way and maybe they are in a hard time and they just lost their job or whatever else. And then all of a sudden you're like, well, this is happening quite often.
Basically, sugar daddy.
Basically a sugar daddy. But I mean, it's easy when you're Twitter pated to feel like I'm in a place, a position where I can help. We're called to be servants as Christians. This is a person in need. Many times females will feel entitled to that and you'll feel like you're the person to help, you know? So, how much is this happening? Is it a red flag? Because paying for her dinner every now and then is perfectly okay. Trying to take care of certain things as a man is perfectly okay. But if you find yourself in that situation where you're paying her cell phone bill because her check came up short all of a sudden, it's like, well, what'd you spend that money on? You don't have a budget. And then all of a sudden you're paying for other stuff and you're always the guy doing that. Then I would say it's a red flag, man.
When you're paying for her necessities and she's paying for her wants,
Totally.
desires.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was one of the most attractive things when I dated is when like she bought her own food. She bought like she was just like, yeah, you know, had that sort of boundary of like, I'm my own person here. Like we're still getting to know each other. Obviously, I don't really
I feel like
want
you're being
you.
used.
I don't really want you paying for my stuff. You know what I mean? I kind of feel that too. Like even in like normal relationships, it's almost kind of like a little bit much when somebody sort of like
Wants to
gives
pay
you
for
or
your
just
stuff.
they like want to own you or something.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You're like, nah, I'm not really want to. I do this myself. You know what I mean? And that's very attractive. And I
It's like the Jews, they get into fights over who's going to pay for what, but it's like the opposite. It's like, you said you would pay for it. I paid for it last time. It's your time to pay. You know, it's like we're both walking out of this place pissed. But between a woman, it's like a very different situation because, you know, like Joe and I growing up, it would be like you make dinner once, or you make breakfast, and, you know, we have this sort of reciprocity that's at work where we're not keeping like exact marks on who did what or what, but we're trying our best to pay into the relationship evenly as we can, which is good. Like that's what it should be. And,
equally yoked.
Equally yoked, man. So like if you have a woman and she's just always the needy one, dude, like that's not going to change. That's going to stick around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's the blue pill kind of what they do that's wrong is they don't get the reciprocity. It doesn't necessarily always have to be money too. Like I'm fine with paying 90% of dates. Like if she tries to pay like 10% of the time, I'm cool with that. But you want to get reciprocity in other ways, like from them.
Oh, absolutely.
That's not financial. And like
Yeah.
so I think that's what it matters. Like is this an equal exchange? Doesn't need to be financially.
Right.
Like you're
But
saying,
just-
it
like we
doesn't
said
have to be
earlier on,
toe-to-toe
it's
on the
not- it's
subjects.
not-
Yeah.
Like it doesn't have to be always money to money
Mhm.
or this to that. It could just be like, and we're sensitive enough to know that. You know,
Yeah,
like time is money, right?
Yeah.
Like so that kind of thing.
Yeah, we had a saying. I think it was the last couple of podcasts, but it was equally yoked in different ways.
Yeah.
So we're not doing the same job.
Like your
There's no
strengths
point in a team if we're all
are
doing
my
the same. If
weaknesses.
we have the same position, you know. But everyone in that team, whether you're, for instance, like a goalie or a forward or whatever, you're doing your job at 100%.
Yeah, I think that's why
we don't all have to be the same
No.
player. You know,
Yeah, I think-
it shouldn't be that way.
I
It
think
should be
some
different.
relationships get competitive because of that, where they both have the same strengths, and they're just trying to. Their weaknesses and strengths don't
they don't complement each other.
Yeah,
Yeah, so
yeah.
you have that kind of friction of like, oh, you're doing my thing and I'm doing your thing.
Yeah.
Who's doing better? And that doesn't work.
No.
Yeah, it should be different jobs done at this equally high level.
That's what I think.
That feels good. That feels good. God bless you if you can find that.
Next one is, and this is one I haven't really had experience with, but has a lot of unfinished projects.
That was one that I put down. I remember being attracted to women that had an artistic side to them. If it was like, painting or dancing. But I love dance. So my mom's a dancer, so I was always something too. It comes back to what we're talking about, elegance and movement and sort of the expression of character that goes down into your
feminine.
body's very when you see a feminine woman that knows how to move and talk, and those things are very big for me. But what I did notice was and I guess this goes into personality type, so it's kind of hard to judge somebody for these things. Jordan Peterson talks about some of the more creative types having issues with the being conscientious. So, and that conscientiousness is sort of the managerial type, being able to quartermaster things and get them done. And so orderly, just being able to get things done, and learn how to just,
and then neuroticism being the other.
Right. And just sort of going from like a creature of phases, like going into one thing really hard and then not seeing it through, and then another thing really hard and then not seeing it through.
It's
and then
like in a bit of an identity crisis. You can tell.
Yeah, but it's also just like
you might be another one of those phases.
there's that.
You might be another unfinished project.
Could be, and so that's where I saw that cropping up. So I don't know if that's true for all different personalities as far as the women that I've had experience with. Like my wife now, she's really good at. She probably has the best sort of balance between left and right brain. Very, very creative, but also very, very able to get things done. She's very good with numbers. She's very good at being able to sort of have a goal and get it done. And so I'm like, that's great. Seeing her get her schooling done, all these different things where it's just like I'm kind of blown away, and then also have the ability to do art. So I was like, this is cool. Whereas I had experiences in the past.
Yeah, I really like that, where they can do both, where they can be They can be structured, they could have their goals, and they can be disciplined and have the willpower to say no to friends and parties or whatever.
Yeah.
Because I have to reach this goal. They prioritize it. And but at the same time they also have like artistic pursuits or like
they can
hobbies
see things in an
that
artistic,
they do apart from like their work that define their character more artistically, and they get express that part of themselves, whether it's painting or dance or whatever it is that they choose to do. I think that's so important to have that balance. It's
not everybody has it.
Wonderful.
Not everybody has this artistic. That's something that I found attractive and sought out. Like if I had a checklist, I'd be like, she has to know art and music. We have to be able to talk that language together. Otherwise, I'm going to be like sitting in this dark space by myself. I don't want it.
Well, because you're an artist.
So exactly.
Yeah.
But
there's that relatability.
Just to push this point forward, is in the past there would be women that would be very passionate about something. So if you're just a first date or something, you'd be like, oh, this woman's all about this, right? She's never going to stop. It's so passionate. Oh my gosh. But that might just be a phase. And they're always very passionate about every one of the phases, but they're not something that gets rooted and embedded in their life.
Yeah, that's another kind of red flag, is like when they're really, like they want the monogamy, they want all that stuff, and then it's really soon. It's like really close to the beginning of the relationship. And then, just
why is that a
be careful
bad thing? It sounds like a good thing.
No, be careful opening yourself up to that because things are moving a little bit fast. They obviously want you, and I've heard many times and then you open up, and then they lose interest. It's one of those things.
Well, then she's being dishonest to begin with. Yeah,
right.
Some of those things you just have to go see because, for me,
or they see things about you that they don't. They feel like they didn't sign up for, and that's why I say it's a little soon.
Right, but you could be honest and be like, "Look, I'm looking for a wife." Right, or if a woman says, "I'm looking for a husband, but we're going to take this,"
Well, it comes back to those glasses and this whole Twitter patient and the cocktail of chemicals that goes off when you really find someone you really like. So it's easy to say, yeah, that'll work, or she's the one, or just check off those.
Oh man, like we were talking to Anton, like when you have the red flag crop up and you know it in your heart, and then you're like, I'll deal with that tomorrow, and then tomorrow you see her and you have a good time with her, and all of a sudden that red flag's an orange flag, and then another good day happens, and then it's like
a yellow
what
flag?
That's
I think that's why you got to get good at pulling those out in the beginning before you're like locked in.
Yes. And if you're Twitter pated, write it down. Otherwise,
And it's tough because like you do have to spend the time. You do have to do the investing to know some of these things. Like it's easy to say, yes, I do this, and they really like you, but it's hard. It's just lip service. It's not like, are they really enacting this in their life?
That's what I was gonna say to kind of cap that off. Is like these women and men out there that are the same way. They will just talk very passionately about what they're doing and what they're gonna do.
That applies to men a lot too. Talking about these
time.
big ideas they got.
More so for men. And I will say that right now.
Yeah, those are your players. Yeah,
but it's like this is what we're gonna do in a month. It's gonna blow your mind, and I'm just gonna all this stuff.
I'm the opposite,
man, and I'm
dude.
like, is this really happening?
That goes into modesty. Because we talk about that clothing and that attractiveness within the physicalities, but women are very attracted to a man with confidence and like a man that's doing things in the world. So it's very easy for a man to be promiscuous with his identity, so to speak, and like what his lifestyle is.
Well, that's what I view
what
the
his
male
goals
version of posting your ass on Instagram as like posting, cars, trips.
I am the breadwinner.
Just stuff that's showing
Lifestyle.
off his status and lifestyle.
Right.
It's
right.
saying that's the male version.
I totally
but
agree.
You probably don't really need to worry about your guy posting like some photo at the gym. Like he's just gonna have gay dudes in his DMs and jack dudes saying you look big. Like that's
look awesome, bro.
Truth.
Shredding up.
But no, I think the issue is that women are attracted to that, and people in general are attracted to that. Which is like, this person has direction. They know what they're going. They're confident about the bait they got. They know what's going to happen. When in reality, why that's a red flag is because they're making assumptions about the future that will eventually involve you.
Yeah.
And you're going to find yourself in hot water. I guarantee it with that person.
This is an absolutely true
they're
fact.
taking liberties that are not theirs. And if they're in a habit of doing that, what you're going to end up being is sort of like a
shit talked.
Well, you're going to end up in the mix, man. You're going to end up in that mix.
The shitstorm.
And so, well, it's
shit talk of the shitstorm.
Really, what I think it is like most of those people don't identify in their failures. They only identify in their successes. So when that happens,
I'll draw you back a little bit more. Those aren't even successes. Those are like fictitious successes. Those are like,
for some of them,
they're not even real.
Well, there's been studies where people will
not even happening.
The people who talk about the stuff they're going to do don't do it.
No, well, there's studies.
There's
Huberman
plenty
put
of
up,
them that have proven that
because you actually
don't talk about it and get it done and then present. Those people you should be more attracted to.
Yeah.
Because they might not be as charming because they're not selling you a dream and then inviting you into this fantasy all the time.
Well, you need to have your own dreams. You need to have your own aspirations. And
but you also need to call yourself out. If you're attracted to that kind of stuff, be like, well, I obviously don't have my own dreams tight enough to, or I need that kind of stuff.
It's easier for a lot of other people to jump on other people's trains than to start their own train rolling. And I think that's one thing I have learned throughout life is a lot of those people that are those big talkers that are very charismatic, that are a lot of fun to listen to, and they excite you with their projects and their goals and their aspirations and everything that they're doing in their life. I tend to shy away from those people.
I definitely do.
Because I through experience, have found that they're very dangerous, and there's not a whole lot of longevity to those relationships. But the people, like you were saying, that produce and that present things that are actual things at the end of time, and they're not always talking about what they're doing. They're more concerned with doing what they are doing, and then just listening and being like a true friend to you, like helping you get to your goals, not necessarily like telling you what to do, but just like helping you find your own way. Those people I'm much more gravitated to because they're way more creative, they're much more supportive, and they're usually like people that actually will remain long-term friends and actually get places in life, because typically those are the people that are doing things.
Right.
Yeah. I would say, Matthew McConaughey's Green Lights.
Yeah.
He has this idea, like, do it and then have somebody stop you.
Mm-hmm.
And for some people, they need that. Some people, absolutely. I'm one of those people who needed that. I would definitely be so almost courteous or respectful where I'd just be like, and then people wouldn't know how to respond. And all of a sudden it's just like, what the heck was that for? Sometimes it's good to take initiative and just plow forward. But that does not mean taking liberties in the future for things that aren't yours. That means being explorative, and that's why I like the way he described it, because for me, it kind of separated those charismatic figures that are prone to derailment and then you being in the aftermath with them, and the figures like Lewis and Clark's and stuff that were just excited about going into the unknown and knowing when it was proper to take the time to see if it was completely safe or not, and they'd still go out, and it's a manly.
There's
two
different guys.
Trait.
There's salesmen, and then there's people that are on journeys, and then they naturally bring the people that are going to help them find those.
Because we as men have to explore. Like if I was on
they'll
a river,
naturally
right,
draw those people into them. They'll naturally draw the people that are going to be part of their life to help them, and them help them be a part of their life. Instead of just trying to do like a blanket sale.
Look at this, what we've done, and like Mike's sitting in the car with us. I'd like to do a podcast. Complete unknown. What is this? I don't know. None of us know really. We've been on the other side of consuming. And that was like one of those green light things. It's like we couldn't ask all the questions. We had one place, Joe's studio. We kind of just went for it, and that's like, I like that. Where's this going to go? We don't know. But we're going to go.
We're going to spend a bunch of time and money and see what happens.
And do it. Do the doing. Do the doing part of it and be accountable and reliable.
Not this podcast is going to have 100,000 subscribers in 2 weeks and it's going to be crazy, guy. No, none of that.
Just consistency. And that's the same thing with bodybuilding or music or anything. And same with the relationships. It's just that consistency over time. There's no cutting corners. There's no silver bullets. There's none of that. You just got to enjoy the work. You got to enjoy the climb.
There's corners to cut. It's called steroids.
You can chop those corners. But in the end, you're still cutting your lifespan down.
Funny that corners and needles are both pointy things.
You could say
I saw it was a meme yesterday. It said, gym tip number 2, if you don't see results after the first day of lifting, use anabolic steroids.
Oh my God. Or you could go back to our first podcast and be like, let's find an animal with unusually high testosterone and just implant their testicles on my body somehow.
Yeah.
Just be like, this is a natural form of steroids. It's just got some tiger testicles. The difficulty would be like, where do I put them? Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Just eat them.
Just eat them.
Be the Chinese way.
Rooster testicles every day for lunch.
I'm
500.
down. Rooster gonads. Well, let's do it. Sea urchins are pretty bad to the bone, and we eat their gonads.
Uni.
It's true.
Yeah. Let's get back to topic.
Okay. Sorry.
This is actually number 7. So this is the last that we had on the main list.
That's a big one.
It was written down as dirty ass car or bathroom.
Oh boy.
Which you came up with this one as well, John, and I didn't think of it at first, but I know I had literally, it's yesterday, the day before, I heard on a podcast that the guy was telling the girls, he basically said the same thing. Check her car, it's a huge red flag. And then for the guys, he's like, check his teeth. Like if his teeth aren't clean, like it's gonna say a lot.
Does he floss?
Mm-hmm.
Big one. Yeah, I've had that. I find that so attractive. Like when a woman has like a clean bedroom, like it's organized. You look in her closet, things are like organized. Shoes are in the right spot. Like everything's. The bathroom looks good. You know what I mean? There's not like makeup strewn everywhere and like freaking trash hasn't been taken out in a million years. And her bedroom is just like crazy. And like you can call her up and be like, I'm coming over. And she's not like, whoa, wait, you gotta, you
give me 6 hours.
You can tell like, you just did this.
9 times out of 10, if you're coming over and she needs more time, it's because a hurricane just ripped through her house. It's the truth, man. It's the truth.
Yeah, and you can tell like that is something that it's like a sign of her mind state. You know what I mean? Because if you're living in that state, like there's not a lot of clarity in that. Like, and also, it's like she wants to have you want a woman to be clean and to have like the surroundings and like have her nest be like a beautiful place, not like a freaking
Did you grow
chaos.
up with my mother was just adamant about just the home being perfect all the time.
Cleanliness is next to godliness.
So I had it drilled in my brain. Even though I don't keep a perfectly clean house, I still remember her.
Was she like every day
awesome.
completely clean it? Like if you brought friends over and they made a mess, you were like low key freaking out when your friend made a mess. You're like, oh dang it, dude, is mom gonna hear about this?
It wasn't that bad, but we definitely had to keep it clean.
Yeah, my mom would yell at my friends. So it would just be like, you're done. Like this is not happening in this house. Your house is your house. This is my house.
Outside.
Yep.
Yeah, and this applies to guys too, because like
it does.
I know a lot of guys have this idea like guys can be dirty and guys can be whatever. But no, like, you need to have your hygiene on point. Your bedroom should be clean. Your house should be clean. Your car, your truck, whatever, should be in good shape. Shouldn't be like gross on the inside. Like you should have
those are basic things because those are representatives of how your mind's going to work and how you're going to treat people. Because if you treat your bedroom like garbage and your car like garbage and all these things like garbage, you're probably going to treat the people in your life similarly.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I'd say, like, my experience, I'd meet women that were, it's usually younger ones, obviously. That was the time where I was shocked by a certain behavior. I was like, wow, this is not just a dirty bathroom. This is a crap-filled bathroom. This is not just a dirty car. This is, like, years of abuse. This car is, like, I can feel it crying when I get into this car.
There's
like,
plaque on the steering wheel.
Oh my gosh!
like-
I remember specifically when I was dating this girl in California, right? And I go over to her house, and we go to her room, and there's no walking space. There was no. You were stepping on clothes. She's like, "There's my guitar in the corner. You want to play it?" I was like, "I'm not sure how to get to it. I'm not sure if I have to get like a lasso and pull that thing. Like, I don't know what
rock
to do."
climbing gear.
Yeah, and I was just looking at her like, "This is insane," and she's like. And I was like, this is normal, I guess, okay. But that how it goes into like the red flag thing is that you will be that thing that she doesn't care for that way. I've noticed a different kind of a woman before where they treat their stuff like crap, but other people's really nicely. Where I'm like, man, that sucks because that's something where she just doesn't feel value for her stuff. But if it's somebody else's stuff, she'll just be very, very courteous, and they know what cleanliness is. They just don't apply it to themselves.
Yeah, well, part of that's a personality trait too, which
Yeah,
like I think it's literally just called orderliness.
or because
And-
conscientious.
It's
orderliness.
a thing
Yeah.
under conscientiousness.
Oh, is it?
I think so.
In JP's
Okay.
it is. It's orderly.
Yeah.
Yep, orderliness. And I know that for some people, it's very, very, they can't function without it. Like, it's like, this is out of
OCD, yeah.
OCDs, you're right.
Yeah.
And then there's other people where it's like, yeah, I have to habitualize this behavior because
Yeah,
it's
let's
just
go
not
into the
in me.
OCD thing real quick because that's not good either. Like,
Where they get if something's out of place, all of a sudden that's all they can focus on.
for
and
instance,
they're
like if you're
yeah.
coming into her house and
Ooh, I see where this is
you
going.
guys should be like excited and enraptured in one another to a point. Maybe like you put your something down or like you do something that disrupts the orderliness.
but not
The-
hugely, right?
And
The throw pillows are you moved
right,
them.
you're not like
Yeah,
laying.
dude.
You're not like taking your dirty boots on her bed, obviously. But
Yeah.
something that's subtly, but you can tell like her entire demeanor changes.
She's just staring
It's like
at you.
It's like her entire demeanor
Yeah.
changes, and she's
You
just like
slapped her in the face.
no longer are
that
you like
thing.
in her room with her, but like all of a sudden like
She's
Cruella
fixated.
DeVille is like coming out, and you're like, whoa, like we should be on cloud 7 or 8. We just went to like I don't know Crazyville real quick. That's also a bad sign because she should be focused on you and like maybe like that's not like just nicely tell you or something like that. But her whole demeanor shouldn't change that drastically.
That's OCD, right? That's
Right.
where you're dealing with somebody who cannot get their mind off of. They're fixated. They're completely attached to that until it's been remedied. You're just stuck. And that
Because
will
in the
drive
future,
you nuts.
you could be having special times or good times with her, like precious times, and they will be eclipsed
Totally.
by the OCD, and it's like that's not cool. You know
It's
what I
like
mean?
when you go to like Busch Gardens and you get really wet and you got a wedgie and it's starting to chafe. It's like, you know what? I'm not going to think about this.
I'm still at
This-
Busch
I'm
I'm
Gardens.
still at Busch Gardens,
That
baby.
sounds like a recent story.
It is a recent story.
I'll take care of it later.
That was me, bro. And
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, I was sat
It's
there.
not
I was,
permanent.
But I started laughing at myself because I was like, you know what, dude? It's gonna dry. You got some awesome shorts on. Like, come
Yeah.
on. You
I
have
was
to
like,
have
John,
this
it's
inner
gonna be
dialogue,
okay,
right?
bro.
It's hilarious because we're sitting on this thing and it's like this, this giant like raft, and we just totally wet, man. I was like, I knew this was gonna happen.
That was my
I
plan.
already knew it was gonna happen, and when it happened, it still was like wedgie chafing.
That was my plan. I was
Yeah,
like,
like-
we'll get wet and then we'll just be free. Like you just
We'll be
get
free.
We'll be
Get
free
wet
after this.
early in the day, so you don't have to.
Yeah, all the reservations are gone now. Just let it
Yeah.
rip, dude.
But it definitely is something where like and I had this one on my list, but it didn't make it. But learn how to laugh at yourself. You can't take things in yourself and stuff that goes wrong too seriously. A lot of times it's an opportunity to show your humanity. You're gonna be like, well, we'll work through this, or here's what we can do.
That's
and,
right.
Like, let's
Yeah.
take your mind out of that.
How do you handle problems?
For sure.
How
There's a
do
lot
you-
more to this list we could do.
Oh,
for
yeah,
sure.
there is. But I think these were some great.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
every one of
Great
these points,
points.
is there any one of these points that would only exclusively be for women? Because
No.
I feel like they could all be for men too.
Right.
Yeah, I agree.
So
I think it's, we look for different things in each other. So that's why I think like when we do the male list, it's probably gonna be a little bit different. There'll be some overlap, but I think there's different things because the man's the leader, and there's different qualities.
roles.
I think,
Yep.
yeah, that we would want to see out of the man versus.
Right, going into the different things done at equally high
Mhm.
level, the equally yoked idea.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And for those younger guys, man, like, cannot stress it enough. If you feel like there's a red flag, if there's some kind of that, like, and you
Go
can
to your
feel,
bros.
Yeah, go to your
Go to your bros, trust
pray
your gut.
about it. Ask the Lord what to do with that information, because like it's not just don't let it go away because you're having a good time or the good time is worth so much.
And I think that's the hardest part for anybody. It's like here you are, with something very special and you're excited about, and then all of a sudden like your gut or there's like that red flag situation, and then you have to check yourself. But guys, get good at checking yourself. Get good at saying, wait, you know what I mean? Like this is a high dopamine state. And yes, we want to stack dopamine and make things as good as they can feel. But in reality, being a man is being able to have reserve, and say, wait, that was a red flag. Restraint and a reserve within situations like that, especially those types of
And I
high
would
dopamine
say-
situations, because those are the times in which you're going to define really serious issues. Like this is actually a person that you really like. You are pretty much exchanging a large portion of your freedom for this person, because if you get in a relationship, a lot of the freedom, a lot of you being able to do what you want when you want to do it, living your own singular life, it becomes double. So you better know that what you're exchanging, the value of that, and keep that at the forefront of what you're within that excitement.
And I
in
would
the beginning
say,
of a relationship.
ideally, you're getting more freedom, because what you're doing is in an ideal relationship, you are having a woman that's expounding on your talents, that's helping you to grow. So in a way you are, and that's why that decision needs to be handled with care.
All right.
And I will also say that if you're talking about a woman to your friends, you need to be honest with your friends about having that open door.
Yeah.
You need
And
to be
not
like,
just
yo,
painting.
dude, tell me what you think. I want to hear what you have to say.
And being real,
Because
and
your
not just
friend
painting,
might-
not
your
just
friend-
painting her
what
off
I've
to be
seen
an
is-
angel.
what I've
Not
seen
just
a
saying
lot of
she's the
times-
best girl in the world.
Hang
She's
on, Joe.
amazing.
What I've seen
none
a
of
lot
that
of
stuff.
times is, and I've been in this place, is where the friend will be so excited about whoever this is, and you as a friend feel like, I don't want to rain on his parade, or I don't want to say things that might bring this person down.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, if you're looking for truth with your friends, recognize that riding high thing and be like, yo, but I want to hear what you have to say.
Yeah, you got to
Even
ask.
if you got to ask, and you got to be honest, because some people just be like, I don't know enough. And I've been in that position where, like, I've looked at my brother or, like, my sister, and I've just been like, the door isn't open. And I just feel like that a-hole who's, like, kind of getting in there with, like,
Well, it's like, yeah,
it's
you
like-
can hurt like guys with their girl. You could hurt the relationship.
can,
They'd be like,
man.
I didn't even ask you.
and that's not cool either.
Yeah.
So
Well, that's what I was saying. It's like it's important for you to be real with your boys or your family about the things that are going on in that. Don't paint her off to be freaking Snow White. Like if you have those little
Exactly.
gut things, if you don't want to enact on them in that moment with her, that's okay. But take note of it and maybe talk to your friends about it
because
afterwards.
I was bad about that.
You know?
I was like gung ho, bro, and I didn't open enough doors to my brother or to my mother.
John was shut.
I was shut down, bro.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I was like, "This is it. Nothing's ruining it. This is it." And I was
This is
like,
my time.
and I had confidence in it. That was like something that I'd been looking for a while. So I wanted, and if I could do things over again, I would have definitely opened those doors. I would have been more sensitive to that feedback, allowing it to happen, because I trust these people. They love me too. They're not trying to rain on your parade.
Well, that's
You
the
know?
idea is like, you fall for people and then you're like, she's the one or he's the one. And then you have people in your life go, maybe not, like just try to draw back out. They're doing that out of love. And you're literally,
I would say it's a healthy exercise to tell yourself
Yeah.
that they're not the one, and just try and think about that for a day or two.
like Mike's really good
yeah,
at that. You're really
you know?
good at moving on and saying like, that's not going to work. And then moving on.
That's why we call him the savage.
Yeah, he's a savage at that.
I mean, I've made some stupid decisions. I just usually don't I don't put my hand right on the stove. I just hovered above and then like, oh, okay.
I remember that.
I remember
The one-
that.
The one thing we kind of forgot to cover,
Uh-huh.
and I think is like a red flag on like is this girl a legitimate Christian?
That's the biggest. I mean, I was wondering why it wasn't on the list, but I mean, I felt like
We were kind of like went with the assumption that this girl is a Christian.
because it's a Christian podcast, so we're
Yeah.
kind of like talking within those parameters.
Yeah.
But I know what you're actually saying. To correct me if I'm wrong, but you're saying like the girls that say they're Christian.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so and that's where like I've talked about before on how like if I'm using a dating app, some of my filtering questions,
Mm-hmm.
and one is like I like to see, or on like a first date, I like to see what questions the girl's asking me
Mm-hmm.
because what she's asking you tells you a lot of what's important.
Totally, bro. Yeah.
And that's the question she asked me, I probably pay attention to more than her answers sometimes because it tells me what she's finding or what she wants to be important. And so if she's digging into your relationship with Jesus, that's like a huge green flag for me.
Yeah.
And then I will like, I'll ask them often on like just kind of like, how important is your relationship with Jesus? And that question can do a lot, like that can present red flags in a few different ways. Number one, that question might just scare them away because they're like not a real Christian really, and they're just wearing the label. So that's probably going to scare them away. Or they have some very obvious, not thought out answer. And then, probably the third one is they're going to give you a real answer that is good.
Right, and you can usually tell because they put effort and time into it. You've touched that nerve, where you're like, this person thinks about this every day. This is something that this is their faith, man. We're talking faith now. And this person's not going to hold back for me, some potential whatever stranger. This person's going to be like, this is all that matters in my life. And you're going to feel that as soon as we touch and broach the subject. Like, this is not something we're mincing words about. This is not something that you're going to wonder about. You're going to know. And I'm making that completely transparent now.
Yeah.
I think it's such a good point. Because if they're holding back, there's a reason why they're holding back. There's something that's either they're like, I really like this person. I don't know if they just want to hold back. Because your faith coming out the gate, that's kind of like, not something up. Because people are like, you hear this all the time, especially I don't want to be the Bible thumper or too passionate or you preach at people. It's like, well, if you're being asked a question, that's a different scenario.
Yeah.
Or you're asking somebody a question. It's a different scenario. You're not preaching. The door is open for you to be yourself. And so who are you? So who is you?
I think that's that red flag. And that's the red flag I've overlooked. Like I've been patient in like red flags I've noticed with their relationship with Jesus. I'm like, well, it's not all the way where I want it to be, but it's kind of there. So then I'll give it patience. But I really like if they have that, like
maybe they're going through a dry spell, like they know a lot about faith and stuff, but they're not so on fire.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, I'm gonna give a super vague example because I don't know who's listening.
Okay.
But like one example was I asked that question on how important is your relationship with Jesus, and I got kind of like an answer with some I would say excuses. She did not like the church.
Okay.
She still had to like relate, or I would say belief in Jesus and whatnot.
Some baggage there.
Yeah, there's some problems, and I was like patient with it.
Totally understandable.
But then as I got further along in that situation, I realized like if I had to conclude like she had probably a logical belief in Jesus.
Okay.
And
that's so rare.
And that's where I've seen this multiple times.
Really?
I think where people have logical, like they believe the Christian story, but you don't see like the relationship with Jesus alive. They're not pursuing it daily. They're not doing anything with it.
Yeah. It's like on the ice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that I would say is what I've experienced.
It's like they could wake up. I went through periods where it was on ice, and I like, and it's like, because we have to be sensitive in our journey, in our relationship with Christ. Like there are going to be those moments where you feel like it's not necessarily the distance and detached, but you're really just like, it's like a time of struggle, like a lot of struggle where you're trying to. Sometimes, like for me, like you cry out to God expecting some different, like, experience. You want the fire to be lit, and it doesn't. And you're just sitting there, like, just pursuing God. And sometimes it doesn't. The routine, everything you're used to, is not there. And those times happen for every person of faith. And you make it through, and God will eventually just come and swoop you off your feet again. But no, that's such a good point. And I feel
like in those circumstances, I've been like, I didn't just like write them off. I gave them time, and it ended up being like my early intuition was correct, and I wasted time. But
It's so often the way it is, isn't it?
Yeah, not once has my early intuition been wrong.
Wow.
Not
Man.
once.
This may be the reason why your savagery is so prominent.
It's a point.
Your gut, right?
Gut, dude.
Your
Yeah.
intuition.
I'd like to bring up something. I think going the other direction, where the Christian girl is like maybe like a bit cookie cutter, and there you could tell like she's just saying all the right things, and that for me is like also like I don't know, I can't. It's too.
I feel like I can see through that though.
Yeah, you can. I feel like that's the majority, like of what I end up encountering. If I is, and it's
Sunday
like,
church girl.
it's almost worse.
That's why I like the
know?
questions they ask more than how they answer questions. Because
Yeah,
they're gonna
even ask
if
questions.
they're the cookie cutter.
You're gonna have like a cross emoji on their
Yeah,
thing.
they're
and be
gonna
like,
they're gonna
"Yeah,
answer the if they're just putting up a front, they're gonna answer the questions correctly and sound like. But if the questions they're asking you is gonna show more where they care, I think.
truth.
They're not digging. If they're not trying to dig into how legit is this Christian man, because the one thing I hear a lot out of Christian women, and that's what we'll touch on the next podcast. Look for the red flags in us.
Oh yeah.
They complain about all these fake Christian men. Well, if they're not even asking you questions, trying to dig into that, then they don't care.
Then they don't care to begin with, right? Because that would have been just done
Yeah.
pretty quick. So what are they really after, right? So it's like, oh, now he's a fake Christian man after we've already dated like 20 times. Now I'm asking the question,
Yeah.
and now I'm seeing who he is. So you just like to.
well, everyone's going to end up being fake Christian on some level.
Well,
Let's
I mean,
be
like,
real. We're all gonna fail on some level. I think it's really.
I wanted to point out
It's not about failure though. It's about
No.
do you have an authentic relationship with Jesus?
it's alive every day, and I think that what I was going to point out something that scares me a lot, is the fresh Christian, you might say, and it's like, will they be able to pull through? Because sometimes you will meet somebody and their life is raptured by an experience. They've met the Lord. But then when those dry spells happen,
what are they going to do?
What are they going to come back? What are they going to do? And that for me
Tenure.
is very, some tenure in the faith and the relationship, because somebody can just be blasting out that Holy Spirit flame of just amazing passion. And then you're like, oh, you've been a Christian for 3 months? Like that scares me just a little wee bit. I don't know that it should. Maybe I'm being, that guy that's like, a little bit too
It's a valid
hard.
concern because Paul, even with elders, is like
They need to be vetted.
Yeah,
They need to go through it.
They can't be of new belief or whatever.
They need to be beyond reproach, even. Like,
With
wow.
anything, guys, really.
But
I mean,
that's
I don't
where
care how good you are at something or how passionate you are about it. You better be in it for an amount of time, because it actually tempers you, because you've done it in different circumstances and different atmospheres, so you know how to handle things. You know what I mean?
That's absolutely the truth, man. Because I mean, as God changes your life, your sort of person that you are becomes more God-centric. And I mean, we're all excited by eternal life and meeting this true person of Christ, and it's an amazing part of our journey when we find the Lord and we're all just crazy, for a while. And we should be crazy all the time. That's why I like Francis Chan's Crazy Love, because he's trying to get us to realize this
Discovering
is the
goal
way
is
we
fun
should
and
live.
exciting, but what do you do with the goal once you
The point
find
I'm
it?
trying to make really quickly here, to go back to the woman or the potential person that's going through, say, a dry spell or something where they're just lacking passion, but is to see, like, are they still doing their daily devotions regardless of this emotional response? Are they still seeking God? Like that for me is something that I'd be like, all right, like I totally understand. And again, it would show me that they've been through stuff, and that they know and they have faith. Like faith is freely there, because faith doesn't
Doesn't
really
mean passion.
Yeah, faith means something when you're just really in a desert, man. It's easy when you're looking at the miracles and everything, and it's just, I believe, but it's hard when you're in the desert and you feel like you're alone, and we will all go through that. So that's what I would ask her. I'd be like, yeah, you're going through this tough time. Oh, I know what you're saying. What's your daily, are you still doing this? Are we still doing this? Yeah, but it's just been rough. I'd be like, totally know where you're at. I've been there before.
And so that's where we're honest with our Christian journey, our journey with the Lord, our relationship with the Lord, and we don't just be like, oh, you're not on fire. Ah, there must be some underlying sin issue in your life, and you must be some piece of crap that, and you're hiding this, and all this legalism judgment starts flowing out. It's like, nah, don't do that. Don't do that. So, that's what I wanted to say about that.
That's probably a good note to end on.
Cool. That was fun, guys.
We probably should have started with the immediate Christian red flag. We got it at the end, but
yeah,
what it is.
This is a Christian podcast after.
Yeah, there should be kind of some assumptions that we were the requirement of the girl being Christian's kind of implied. But.
And if you're listening and you're not a man or woman of faith, that's it.
It's number one green flag.
Yeah, for sure. And having parents at least that were, even if they weren't necessarily at the time, I find like if they were raised in that atmosphere, like where their parents love the Lord, sometimes they'll go through, a phase of maybe prodigal sonage or, where they're still seeking truth. Those values are inherently like rooted in them. Yeah. But they still have that outlook. Cause I've seen some Christian girls that I wouldn't go near, a lot. And it's mostly just a relatability. I just can't relate to them like at all. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So I wouldn't write off some of those that maybe they don't have that immediately, but maybe in their life they do have those fundamentals down, and maybe they can circle back. Maybe you're the person to bring them back. I don't know. Maybe they've had some bad experiences in the past, but it's always important to keep that door open. Love them. Absolutely, it boils down to love, and that would be a good podcast. Is how do you be such a savage and still be a kind gentleman? All right. Who wants to close in prayer?
You do it. It's you, Keaton. You got that. Yeah.
All right, okay. I can't do it. I'll do it. Thank you, Father, for this discussion. It was fun, Lord. Thanks for filling this air today with a bunch of interesting things, Lord, as we're trying to find out what relationships mean and somehow give back. We want to give back to the men and women that are there trying to do their best to do what's going to please you and give their potential partner the respect that they deserve and walk in these roles that you've so delicately put before us. Thank you for your word. Thank you for these men. We pray blessings on the listeners. We love them so much, and we thank you. In Jesus' mighty name, amen.